Might as well open it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it'll do, Sander. That's when Jim logged in, then it prompted him to do the update. So that will happen if you haven't been in there for a while.
He feels like he was just thrown under the bus for some reason. He doesn't understand why.
Well, you know that as a result of that, what was the one we had to do last week or so? It's just that sign off. It's not the annual compliance meeting yet. That one's coming up, but it goes through and asks the questions about cell trust. Have you been in there, within 60 days? I'm like, oh, great. So open it up and then I can't get in it. So it takes me a day to figure. Anyway, as long as you go in there 60 days, you're good.
Well, Jim would like a tutorial meeting on it.
So I'm sure that Mr. Kirby will be glad to do that.
He's got to turn his on first.
Did he ever get rid of his flip phone, for heaven's sakes?
No.
Still got
Nope.
it.
Nope.
He's not old school. He's classic.
I think
Not
that's
bad.
called vintage at this point.
Vintage. That's it. He's vintage. Oh, good. All right. Any questions about either of those things? Terry flashing the colors on the call this morning.
Go Bucks.
All right, Matt, I'm sorry you had to sit through all that, but appreciate you being here and very jealous of your plaque behind your head. Let's all go to Augusta and do this call, and that's where we need to be.
Hey, I just got lucky through the lottery. Everyone can too.
Nice, good for you. Well, Matt and I have worked together for a number of years. He and Jim Harder have done I think a significant number of cases together. Matt and I ran into each other several weeks ago and hey man, I'd really like a chance to speak to your group. And I said, fantastic, dude, you're in. And so I think he's got about 6-7 hour presentation he'd like to go through this morning and update us on what's going on. Maybe it's a little shorter than that.
Yeah, when I got into this business and got into a client-facing role, first thing I learned was the 3 Bs: be bold, be brief, and be gone. And so I try to stick to those. But as John mentioned, my name is Matt Wyman. I'm the private equity and alts consultant over at DWS. I've worked with Jim on a number of deals and occasions for a lot of his clients, and he's been honestly one of my biggest advocates of any advisor I work with in the country, because no matter the ticket size case or client, he reports back, and I'm sure he's just saying this to be nice, but 100% satisfaction. So, he introduced me to some of the advisors that might be on the call, as well as John. And I just wanted to take 10 minutes to kind of introduce myself, walk you through some of the resources we have at DWS for advisors, practice management, that kind of thing. And then just highlight maybe 3 to 5 minutes on our strategy. And if you're interested in anything I cover today, whether it's our investment or whether it's our practice resources, or you'd like to just get out and play golf with me sometime, please feel free to connect. I'll follow up with everyone. But a little bit on my background. So I'm originally from the Northeast. I went to a small school out in Pennsylvania, Bucknell. Graduated there, did some undergraduate work in real estate and private equity at BlackRock and Goldman Sachs, moved on to graduate school at Boston College, and then went into the mutual fund asset management world with Fidelity, and most recently Columbia Threadneedle before joining DWS. But sort of enough about me. I'm not immune to the fact that pre-COVID, there were 50 wholesalers in blue suits that would call you and say, buy my 5-star rated mutual fund or my 5-star rated alternative investment, and bring absolutely no value. And post-COVID, there's still the same number of us doing that. We're just doing it in golf polos from the comfort of our living room. So, really the 3 best resources, that I have or can give to advisors to avoid being the sales guy who only sells on performance are LinkedIn prospecting. So I run LinkedIn prospecting seminars for any advisor who's trying to build out a digital presence or connect with clients or prospect new clients on prospecting. In addition to LinkedIn prospecting, I do acquiring books of business seminars. If any advisors trying to buy practices, sell practices, partner with other practices, we have resources that cover all that. We do client golf, client events, happy to sponsor and help with any prospecting or client appreciation events, if we have a partnership. And then finally, and I think someone may have alluded to it in the first 5 minutes of the call, but any continuing education licensing needs. Right now I offer once a quarter, an hour of CE credit for real estate seminar, and I'm in the process of getting pushed through a super CE for 2023, where we can spend an hour of our time together and we'll knock out about 15 to 16 state insurance credits, 10 CFP, and 5 SEMA credits. So that's something we're going to look to put on in the summer of 2023 for some of our partners and producers. So that's kind of our value add menu. I'll transition and just show 1 or 2 slides. Oh, actually, I might be disabled from.
Go ahead. You're able now.
Perfect. Now we're talking. So everyone should be seeing the REEF Property Trust presentation. Perfect. So here at DWS, we operate REEF Property Trust, which is a non-traded private real estate alternative. After I mention that, the next question or objection I get from any advisor is, Matt, I bought a REIT 10 years ago. There's no liquidity. My client's money is still in it, or I took on a new client whose money is still trapped in a REIT that they bought 10 years ago. I'm never doing a K1. I'm never doing anything that has quarterly or yearly liquidity ever again. I hear you. I understand. And the best thing I can tell you is it's not us. We have daily pricing and daily liquidity, even though it's bought through subscription agreement and is a private real estate trust. And we are a 1099 perpetual life offering. So we will never have a K1 closing of the fund or distribution that is a headache for you and your clients. So that's the biggest differentiator between us and other providers in the industry right now. DWS, we manage about $90 billion worth of real estate assets across the globe. We've been doing it for about 50 years, and we have over 350 dedicated real estate employees. 349 of them are smarter than myself, which makes me feel pretty good about where we're at from a real estate perspective. Our strategy, REEF Property Trust, is a diversified core strategy. We have industrial, office, retail, and apartments in this strategy. After I show this slide, the next 2 questions I always get: do you own any shopping malls in retail? We don't. And the next thing is, do you own any office buildings in downtown San Francisco or New York, where people wear gray suits and do each other's taxes all day? We don't do that. Our flavor of office is places like Raytheon, technology, healthcare, build to suit areas, and then we do industrial deals and apartment as well. These are the real estate and target markets that we look at. We only invest in the top 30 real estate markets in the country. We do not do any secondary markets. So an example of that is, I live here in Charlotte. We'd only consider Charlotte and Raleigh. We would not consider places like Greensboro or Columbia, as much as those are lovely places. We just focus on Class A buildings in Class A cities in Class A neighborhoods. So if you can look at our map, everyone kind of checks out their city to see where they're at. I think most of the advisors and professionals on the call are somewhere located in the Southeast. And you can see, looking there, we feel really good about places like Raleigh, Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville, Austin, Texas. And essentially we heat map by sector where we would do a deal and where we wouldn't do a deal. I'll just use Nashville as an example because that's where Jim's located. If you looked at the screen here, we feel great about Nashville residential, Nashville office, Nashville retail. Demographically growing area, high job creation. The only deal we wouldn't do in a Nashville area would be an industrial deal. And the question I get that is, why wouldn't you do a deal there if you like all the other areas? And this just gives you a real flavor for sort of how we manage real estate. No contentions about Nashville as a growing area. However, when I leave Jim's, office for lunch and I drive to Cookeville, Tennessee to meet my other Tennessee advisor to do a happy hour, I see 98 miles of undeveloped land where if we were to do an industrial deal, someone could come in next to us and just, put in a new industrial deal and we'd lose pricing power over tenants as a landlord. So just a quick flavor for how we manage the real estate. This is where we are now from a broken down standpoint, pretty healthy, diversified among all 4 of the sectors. And, what does that kind of look like from a portfolio standpoint? It's today, this number of assets about 700 million. We're about a $700 million fund. Our occupancy rate is 98% within the portfolio, which is about 5% higher than the industry standard of 93%. And our leverage is 39%, making us considerably more conservative than some of the other competitors out there that have leverage targets of 60%. I always kind of stop here to say we are not the sexiest REIT that is in the business. We are not focused on high octane growth and risk. We want to be a very conservative player, to use a baseball analogy. We like to hit a lot of singles and doubles. We don't really shoot for home runs ever. We feel like for a lot of folks, this is an income need or this is a high net worth need. This is not get rich money. This is for people who tend to be rich or have severe income needs. So I'll just walk through our current distribution rate. Right now in the iShare, I have it highlighted, don't tell anyone in compliance. We've made 109 consecutive monthly distributions. And right now our iShare has a 5.1% average annual distribution. That's paid out monthly. And because it's private real estate and because you buy it via subscription agreement, you get tax advantage to that as well. Essentially, without getting too far into it, we depreciate the buildings for your clients and then pass those tax savings on. And so instead of 5.1%, what you get is a tax equivalent yield of about 7.5%. So in this crazy fixed income yield environment, 7.5 for high net worth earners is, a significant, I'd call it opportunity that the market doesn't present today. This just looks at the performance of the strategy. Since inception, REIT Property Trust has been up 9.58%. So roughly half of that coming from an income perspective and roughly half of that coming from capital appreciation number. Why do I say that that's kind of important is because you're matching roughly half of the income you're going to be paying out via net investment income. And then the other half of the strategy return is going to be capital appreciation. You don't have erosion of principal. So this is not like a short-term bond fund where you get a great level of income, but your client put $100,000 into the strategy and then they go to redeem and get out of the mutual fund 8 years later, and they're asking you questions about why their position is now only worth $78,000. For our strategy, if a client put $100,000 in, they'd get a 5% average annual yield, and then if they held it for 10 years and moved out of it, they'd be left with $109,000, $110,000 as a prime example. So from a advisor perspective, the 2 share classes we see that are most common are the A share and the I share, just a brokerage transactional account for advisors and clients that like to work in that share class. And then for fee-based accounts, we have our traditional I share. It'll vary at each broker dealer, but this is just a flavor. The minimum investment into one of our strategies is only $2,500. We do not have a net worth requirement. Our net worth requirement is $250,000 inclusive of your house or $70,000 gross income. I'd say for 99.9% of advisors, those are lower than the minimums you would all have to take on clients. If you do an A share business, we'll pay the advisor 3% upfront commission with a 55 basis point trail on it. And then if we are doing I share, nothing upfront to the client, 1%, just like a short-term bond fund would operate. So that's kind of a very high level, just overview of REIT Property Trust. And I will stop sharing my screen and field any questions.
Weird.
So the question in the room, is this set up as a mutual fund then? So
It is not a mutual fund. So it's a private investment. So if you were to have clients, proceed in it, you'd fill out paperwork. It's a handful of pages. It's not anything, more stressful than an annuity or life insurance contract. And your client would just do a wet signature. And then you submit it to our back office, and then we process the paperwork, and then they are set up. It does fit into an account. So if your client has a fee-based account or a brokerage account, it will show up in a line item under alternative section. So it is not a separate account or login or anything like that. But it is just not purchased via ticker symbol the same way that a mutual fund or interval fund would be.
Okay.
What about license?
How about licenses?
In terms of doing the business?
Yeah.
Excuse me, from an advisor standpoint, like what would you?
Yeah, it's a Series 6, Series 7.
My understanding is we accommodate all series licenses for it. There's not like a special Series 79 like there is for investment banking. I work with advisors that are 6, 7, 63, 65, RIA, doesn't matter.
So a 6 will work.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, John, we'll send the first application directly to you.
Okay.
That's
Since
that's another thing
here,
to,
send it to me. I got it.
another thing that Jim could attest to if he's on the call, but one of the things that makes us different than our competitors is I don't cover mutual funds or ETFs at DWS. So I'm not running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to cover 57 products. This is the only thing with advisors that I talk about and cover on a daily basis. I'm wholly dedicated to, you, your clients, in this real estate investment trust. So, if you want me to come to your office and fill out the paperwork with you, happy to do that. We have a dedicated operations, support staff that sits in Chicago that will get on the phone with you, or support staff, and walk line by line. You can probably tell based on the, performance of the strategy. I always say with a 9.6% return, with a 7.5% tax equivalent yield, and only 3% standard deviation, you'll never fire me or not take my call because of the performance of this. You'll absolutely fire me and never take my call if I screw up one of your best clients' paperworks and make you look like not organized. And so, we put every precaution in place to make that not happen, to have dedicated professionals who their entire job and overpaid salary is to focus on the paperwork for the client.
Overpaid salary. So give you a check for whatever, and how quick's my first check, my income coming back as a client?
Yeah, you get it first month. So if you were to purchase, assume everyone went on this call, and I hope you do, and you said, Matt, send me the paperwork. I'm going to talk to a client tomorrow, get them to send it in. And then you sent in the subscription agreement tomorrow or the next day. Usually it takes about a week to settle. We can expedite that on sort of the back end to make it as seamless as possible. Your client becomes a shareholder, and then they start participating in the distributions, right away.
So one of the other questions in the room was about liquidity.
Yep. So we offer daily liquidity. So if your client was a shareholder today and you submitted the redemption request to your back office, once we get it, they'd enjoy T+3. We have institutional guardrails in the strategy to protect the everyday investor. So what I mean by say that is every quarter we make 5% of the NAV available for redemption. And then we have 5% carryover into the next quarter. So on average, we see less than 1% per quarter of redemption in this strategy, meaning that every quarter we're making roughly 8.5 to 9.5% of a $700 million fund available to for redemption. And so that's kind of a no short way of saying if you have a client who has $10,000 in the strategy, $100,000, $1 million in the strategy, they could never possibly run into a liquidity issue. We have these guardrails so that one high net worth family in New York City doesn't put $50 million into the strategy and then go through a nasty divorce or estate situation where there needs to be a liquidity event and there's run on the NAV and crushes the everyday investors, NAV. We'd never want to do that to the everyday investor. So that's how the liquidity in our strategy works. We never gated anyone during COVID. We had carryover even at the height of COVID. Less than 3% of the fund was redeemed. We've never had any liquidity issues during interest rate temper tantrum, anything like that. 90% of the fund is is invested in hard real estate assets. And then we have 10% of the fund invested in real estate securities and cash to handle this liquidity.
Was it considered a non-traded REIT or a traded REIT?
It is considered non-traded REIT.
Okay. My understanding was Series 6 can't deal with non-traded REITs, but maybe that's changed.
You know, it's not an issue that I've run into of ever having an advisor that was Series 6 do non-traded REIT, but I can certainly look into it for you and just 100% confirm that.
How
Yeah,
long
we
is,
might,
go ahead.
we just might want to confirm that with ESI.
Okay.
How long's DWS been around?
We've been managing real estate for 50 years, and we've been managing investments and assets for over 100 years.
What's the sales load?
So if you do an A share, we'll do 3% upfront, and then if it's an I share, there's nothing upfront.
No back-end stuff on redemptions within a certain period of time?
No back end stuff on redemptions?
Nope, there's a 1-year CDSC, the same way there would be for a fixed income mutual fund. But if your client held it for 2 years and then wanted to redeem, there's nothing on the back end.
Okay. Where's this most appropriate? IRAs?
You can hold it in any account. I'll tell you the two biggest places where I see it leveraged are with, people in need of income, either in a brokerage or an IRA account. And it usually is like a bolt-on, position, just something to sort of deepen that relationship, get income needs. And then where I see it become a sort of more meaningful part of anyone's portfolio is anyone that gets into that high net worth, conversation. Typically, when I was covering mutual funds back in the day, right, you sit with an advisor and you go, what do I need to do to earn 10% of your fixed income portfolio, 5% of your equity portfolio? Whereas I'd say this is almost the exact opposite, where you'll probably find there's, 10 to 15 people at the low end of your book where this kind of like income replacement saves you a lot of hassle, gets them very reliable. They tend to be pretty conservative. And then there's probably 15 to 20 clients at the top end of your book where doing something like this makes a tremendous amount of sense to, your practice, to their income needs, to their tax situation. So, I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but I'd say there's a good portion of your book of business where this can definitely make some sense.
Matt, what about for older clients? Is it appropriate for people in their 80s?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. And the answer is undoubtedly yes, because especially if they have an estate planning or a trust situation, or they want to leave an inheritance, because if your client who is 80 years old, say purchased this and then, in 10 years left it via an estate or inheritance to a child or a grandchild, that new beneficiary does receive a step up in basis the same way that you would, a residential house. So there is preferred tax treatment for willing this down to younger generations.
What about for a 96-year-old who is in fair health, maybe around a couple more years, will never need the money, and I'm really more concerned about taking care of his beneficiaries?
Yeah, absolutely. Then what I'd say absolutely we should do is set up a call, do a deep dive. You can set up the account so that you don't take any of the income and you just drip it, reinvest it, let it grow as much as possible. And then, when they want to leave it to the beneficiary and, what is hopefully, 5+ years, they will enjoy the step up in basis. And then you can just go in and switch the income needs if they decide they want the distribution.
Okay, so if they want the distribution, they're not penalized for it.
No, ma'am. You do have to, when you change, whether you want to reinvest or whether you want the distribution, you do submit a form saying that, like, hey, we're making this adjustment, but there is no, great tax event or, issue or fee with deciding what you'd like to do with your distribution.
Are you gonna send us out your contact information?
Yeah, what I'll do is send out, just follow up with, a few pieces of things I talked about today, my contact information. If you're in the greater Charlotte area, on the 25th of this month, we're hosting a lunch at the Palm, to just talk about the strategy more in depth, answer a lot of these questions. If you're in the Nashville area, on the 9th of November, we're hosting the same kind of lunch at Paul's Chop House. And if you're not in either area and you want to sit down and really do a deep dive face to face, I'm happy to get you on the calendar and come to your office.
Gotcha.
I gotta start fasting now if we're going to the Palm.
Well, you got a place in both spots, so I expect you to be there for both. So you got a double fast.
I really just weigh 110 pounds, but it's all these dang lunches are killing me.
Lori, did you have a question? I saw you go off mute a couple times.
Well, I just wanted to mention that whenever any of you are ready to submit paperwork for these transactions, give me a call, because there are forms that are specific to these REIT transactions, so that are different than what are used for mutual funds and so forth. ESI paperwork.
Lori's getting a Palm and Fleming's and Capital Grill dinner for every ticket that's spent.
She'll wear out a steak now. Be careful.
That's true.
And I was genuine about my offer, even if this investment, you decide, hey, Matt, I appreciate your time. This is absolutely not for me or any of my clients, but you still want to go more in depth on any of the prospecting. You want to get out and meet, talk about our resources. Happy to do that as well.
Sandra, I thought you had another question in the room.
He's talking to Rob.
You said something about 5 years on the REIT.
Like a 5-year number, or
You were talking about Robin's question was the 96-year-old and then pass it to the next generation in 5 years. I think that was just an example you gave.
yeah, just an example. There's no, you can hold it as long as you want. We'll never, close this strategy or, never kick back anyone's capital, whether it's, your client gets into it and 2 years in decides it's not for them, or they want to hold it for 57 years and will it down, 3 generations. It's all, really the same to us.
How long has this been around?
So 2013, it's been around. So about 10 years ago is when this kind of alternatives explosion, happened, where I think every day we're reading about Yale's endowment fund and, Ray Dalio and all those kind of things. And, these products have been around for 50 years, and they've been great products for 50 years. And they've only been for the ultra high net worth, $5 million, minimums, $10 million net worths. And so our entire way into the marketplace as to differentiate ourselves at DWS was to make a investment that was so conservative in nature and so focused on the everyday client that, we got blessings from all the back offices to have, the lowest minimums, the lowest fees, and the, best liquidity in the industry. So, if you're an advisor, and I'm not saying anyone in the room is, but if you're an advisor, you're a client who is supremely focused on investing in real estate for double digit 40% returns, I'm happy to point you in the direction of people who will do that. I won't BS anyone on the call. It's just not going to be us. We're very focused on risk adjusted basis, income, and having a conservative strategy.
Matt, does that 5.1, does that income fluctuate much at all? Or is that a take it to the bank every month? I know what I'm going to get the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's pretty much a take it to the bank. I mean, if we get into a real weird operating environment, you could see it come down 20 basis points or go up 20 basis points. But, we're really comfortable to that number. And that's just kind of how we manage real estate. So, our goal is to be well occupied. So for example, we own a Whole Foods shopping center in Alpharetta, Georgia, which is a, extremely nice area that a lot of people would attest to. And it's like, we'd rather go 10 years with the same tenants, and raise their rent 2% each year, then we would be cycling in tenants to get, 6% increases on rent, 10% increases on rent, and really raise that income. And then on the bottom side of that is, we support 100% of our distribution with net investment income. So we would not, if we got into a situation where we felt we needed to lower the distribution 25 basis points so that 100% of that was being met by net investment income, we wouldn't do that, because we'd rather, lower it a smidge than be in this situation where we're taking all of this undue, unnecessary risk with, people's money and stability.
So another question in the room was about, is this open to 1031 exchanges?
Yeah, so we're seeding 1031 exchange right now. We're going to go live with that in Q1, Q2. So as an alternative shop, DWS is kind of going full bore into alternatives. My hope is that this time next year, when I join a call or take people on the call out for golfing, we'll have 1031, private equity, private credit. So we are fully building out all these things. Just, today, October 12th, 2022, this is our only alternative that is available. But if you believe that, 9 months from now, 18 months now, you're going to have clients that are interested in 1031 opportunities, I'd be having those conversations now. I'd be having brokerage conversations with them today about REIT property trust, because when we go live with 1031 in Q1 of next year, your clients are already comfortable with the strategy. I have a lot of clients just for example, I don't know this has worked out the way it is, but I have a lot of clients in the DC area that know in 2023, 2024, and 2025, they're going to have significant 1031 opportunities, $10 million plus buildings. And they've started putting clients in today to the strategy at $25,000 brokerage, tickets, just so that the client gets comfortable with the way that we manage real estate, gets used to seeing a lot of green on the statement, so that when the advisor goes to the client 18 months, 2 years, and now we've got a $10 million 1031 opportunity, you're not like introducing something new to the client. It's already something that the client's comfortable with. And I can say that because we're so conservative in nature, like this year, we're up 6.5%. So we're one of the only things that's green in a client's portfolio right now. So a lot of my advisors have sort of taken that approach with the 1031 opportunity.
Are you going to be sending, you said you were going to send some information out. Is there like sales literature kind of information, something that we can take
so
to a client?
The presentation I walked you all through today is client approved for the end client. So you could walk them through this same information. You can send it to them, and then I'll send you stuff that's advisor use only, that you probably would only want to show a client in person or walk through. But there's a few things that, one to be on the lookout for is called Turbulent Times, and it goes through the inception of REIT Property Trust versus the S&P 500, and it shows you on the 50 worst trading days in the S&P what REIT Property Trust did. It would show you that at the height of COVID, S&P is down 12% in one day, REIT Property Trust is only down 3%. It would show you in 2018, when the market falls out 3% on one day, REIT Property Trust being positive 45 basis points. So those are the two things I'd be on the lookout for to share with clients.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Matt, lay out a phone number for these guys.
Perfect. My phone number is 704-207-6536. And my email address is just Matthew.Wyman, as it's spelled on the screen, at dws.com.
I'll send those to me. I'll distribute to everybody. Sounds like we got some interest. I know nobody asked the question, but it seems like as an alternative to a SPIA, this would be a great way to go, and the income rates, depending on the age, would be significantly better.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And anyone who's in those areas, hope to see you at lunch. I'll send you invites to it. Anyone who wants to set up an appointment, golf, let me know. We can do client golf as well. If you've got clients that might be ripe for this, but just need a few extra, conversations, we can always set that up as well. But I really appreciate everyone having me on, and, please let me know if there's anything I can do to support anyone's practice on here.
Get that big steak in Laurie over there. Make sure she's happy. That'll serve you the best. Couple highlights before we let everybody go. I wanted to highlight everybody over 50,000 of GDC year to date. So our leaders year to date. Rickleton, congratulations, having another good year, Mr. Consistency. Kirby approaching 60 grand. Jim Harder, Bud Gray, north of 90,000 GDC for the year. Congrats, guys. Edgar, 160,000 of GDC this year. And Mr. Sandersmith is just on fire. Just having a great year all across the board again, man. Congratulations. Approaching, it looks like you'll scare $300,000 of GDC to death this year. That's fantastic. Setting a great example. Number one, look for your renewal packet. If you have states that need to add or take off, make sure we get that done. Cell Trust, make sure you've logged into that and looked at it. And if we can help you do business, you know our number. Thanks for calling in today. Have a great day.